Trigger warning for, well, pretty much everything. October or not, I've never been known to sugarcoat topics. After all, there are more than enough cavities and diabetes going around as is, so I'll get straight to the point. The worst fears don't come from fantasy, but reality. And yours has been a psychodrama filled with recycled trauma. Life has provided you with more nightmare fuel than Friday the 13th, Five Nights at Freddy's, and Freddy Krueger films combined. So rather than waste time, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the terrors that tormented, tortured, and tore you to shreds, the horrors that made you think that you'd be better off dead. Let's talk about how you never cared to visit haunted houses because you were raised in one. I'm talking about the house where your little brother used to bare-knuckle brawl with his own head and medication didn't do jack to fix the issue. The house where your cousins locked you in a dark closet for hours as a prank you can thank for the first time you heard the voices, the noises in your head that said your choices were pointless, the voices that still say till this day that you're worth less than worthless. The house where your daddy used to beat on your mama, where her screams would tickle all the walls and bounce like balls through the halls, keeping you up at night. The house where the hope of eating sweets, or really anything, would ring hollow each and every Halloween, where nothing horrified you more than the roar of your own stomach, a fear that became real 365 days of the year. The house where your uncle laid claim to your frame, but your family swept the theft under the rug, and to this day, even your husband's loving touch occasionally sends the wrong kind of shivers down your spine. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how, even after moving out of that house, you saw horrors too gruesome for a Saw horror film. You've seen stranger things than Stranger Things, like when your whole world turned upside down after you got high enough to end up 6 feet under. It was one bad trip to the sunken place, but it drug you so low that you wonder if you really did get out. Let's talk about that time when that one woman's false accusations ruined your reputation, and now the thought of trusting another honey terrifies you. Let's talk about how you learned the hard way why hard liquor is called spirits, how you learned why you can't spell booze without boo. Back when you began to clutch a liquid crutch to dull the pain of past abuse with alcohol abuse. This was before reaching the bottom of bottles proved to you that bruise can't heal the bruise. Back when your homies were like Casper, friendly, but never really there. Never seen, never felt, never holding you whenever you were spooked by chilling memories. It was alcohol that kept you company on the coldest nights, kept you warm in a pool of your own tears, piss, and vomit after you consumed too much gin and tonic. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how you joined a cult that dabbled in the occult, how it started off fun, but you ended up in a funk, deep in a demonic dump, mixed up in voodoo and juju junk, stuck in satanic stuff they are still too scared to confront. Let's talk about how the only thing you choose to be on Halloween is Pennywise. Folks call you a clown for counting your pennies cause it sounds stupid to those who can afford to be pound foolish. Being both broke and broken is the only two-piece combo that you can indulge in, and no amount of trick or treating could trick someone into treating you with a full belly. Let's talk about how you slept with the wrong people and the SEX, that sacred energy exchange, caused most of their ghosts to make a host out of you. Let's talk about it. Or maybe I should show you how it's done. Maybe I should give language to my anguish. I know the poem has been tense, but it's about time that I present my afflictions of the past, my fears of future matters, and my beating heart on a platter. Let's go. Back in time to first grade, after my 6th birthday, so sometime in December, I remember getting treated in the worst way. As I waited late outside my school for my parents to come take me, there was a lady, a teacher maybe, the one among the staff that seemed to hate me. She began to berate me, talking to me crazy. I talked back bravely, so she took the leather from her waist and dangled it in my face to shake me, break me. Afraid, my juvenile eyes gazed at our adult audience to aid me, save me, but banking on my age did nothing to earn the attention that they should have paid me. Fear laced with adrenaline raced in my veins as I realized that my hopes of avoiding pain were in vain. I was scared and unprepared, but I chose fight over flight and stood my ground 10 toes down. I lunged for the belt that she held in her hand, which proved to be a grave mistake. Each stroke of her arm painted my face the color of trauma. I felt her belt pelt my body into oblivion. Oblivious to her reason for the treatment, I wish I could tell you that I was saved by the bell or by anyone who wished me well, but the grown-ups watched as I was being force-fed a taste of hell, even as my face began to swell. Teachers and staff chose to laugh as she whipped until I wept to the tune of my own beating. I remember wishing for the song to be over, but over and over she continued to play the same beat on repeat. I remember that the sun had set by then, so it was too dark for me to see what I did to deserve falling face first on pavement. I remember how that one day in December birthed a lifetime of rage and fear. My very own remix to The Nightmare Before Christmas led to nightmares in bed long after that year. Now that you have the BTS of my PTSD, maybe now you'll see that it's okay to be scared. And that it's okay if you were scared when I dared you to share. We've all been there. And I want you to be aware that you're not alone. You and I are a pair of normal people with our fair share of paranormal evil. We all have our crosses to bear. But there's one who cared enough to carry our cares on a cross to a hill called Golgotha, and then left them there. It's a common saying that G's move in silence, but G's must be short for Jesus, because when he suffered, he was real quiet. Most folks in the same boat would scream obscenities, but the silence of the lambs proved to me that he shouldered our horrors willingly. Being covered in blood is usually an ugly scene, but from what I've seen, being covered in his is a lovely thing. And when he rose from the dead, he wasn't a mummy or a zombie, no. You should know that he rose in a glorified body. Since then, he holds the keys to death and the grave in the palms of his nail-pierced hands. He commands the knees of every scary thing to bow at his nail-pierced feet, never to rise again. Whether it's a wizard's abracadabra or a witch's hocus pocus, the power of both is bogus the moment that we surrender to the omnipotent. The devil's insidious intentions incinerate at the mention of his name. The day that I accepted Jesus was the day that everything changed. That's not to say that no evil will come my way for the rest of my days, no. But where the Spirit of the Lord is, no other spirit can remain. The people who hurt us were just people. Don't get me wrong. I'm aware that they moved like they were werewolves wearing sheep costumes. Yeah, but they were still just people. Simply tools that were used by a much greater evil. The monsters we battle are not human persons, but curses, serpents, demons, behemoths, giants like Goliath and Leviathans, none of which can stand when he commands the knees of every scary thing to bow at his nail-pierced feet, never to rise again. Like me, you might have skeletons in your closet, but I also got a God who can cause those dry bones to rise. The question is, do you? He who has ears to hear, let him hear. God's perfect love can purge you of hurt and fear. So trade the tears of your heart and your fear of the dark for the fear of the Lord. He alone can turn our twilight into the breaking dawn. He alone can turn our haunted house into holy ground. He alone can turn our Halloween into a hallowed be thy name. He alone can turn our Halloween into a hallelujah.